Who is the best quarterback that the Georgia Bulldogs will face in 2023? That is the question that I have for you today. And looking over the schedule, I don't think there is a single quarterback that is elite enough to beat a Kirby Smart-led defense. I'm going to go down the list in just a second, but as we know, if you don't have elite quarterback play, you're not beating Georgia. You didn't beat them in the last 2 years. You're not going to beat them in 2023. And as long as Kirby Smart's there, if you don't have excellent quarterback play, you are not beating a Kirby Smart-led Georgia Bulldog team. You're just not going to do it. You have to have either a Bryce Young, a Joe Burrow, or a Mac Jones type, right? One of the best college quarterbacks of that year if you want to beat Georgia, and I don't see it on this list. So let's go down the list a little bit, right? Ball State, Tennessee, Martin, UAB, you don't matter. Whoever they've got coming out there to throw the football is in for a really, really bad day. So let's not even talk about them, right? South Carolina has Spencer Rattler, a guy who ended the season last year on a strong note, played really well against Tennessee, really well against Clemson, but he still just threw for over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, had no shot at beating Georgia earlier in the year. They just ate him up left and right. He's not going to beat Georgia in Athens, right? He's just not going to do it unless he turns into the greatest version of himself, or unless he kind of turns into Patrick Mahomes. He's not coming in Athens and beating Georgia, okay? Nice little quarterback, semi-talented, but he's not coming in Athens and beating Georgia. Moving on. Tennessee has Joe Milton, right? Hendon Hooker's backup from last year. Guy can absolutely sling it. Maybe the strongest arm in college football next season. Can he be accurate enough and consistent enough to beat Georgia up in Knoxville? That's the big question I have. I know the guy can sling it, right? And I do think that, the quarterback job is his to lose. And I think he's going to have a very good year. Been around for a long time. Was at Michigan, transferred to Tennessee. Has kind of had to fight his way up the depth chart. Now is his year, right? He's going to take the reins, and dude can sling it like 75 yards in the air, right? But can he put the ball where it needs to be and do that over and over and over again against a tough Georgia defense for 60 minutes? That's where I have a big question mark. So I don't know if he's the guy who can beat Georgia's defense. Right now, it's hard for me to see him going out throwing for 350 and 4 touchdowns. Just don't see it. In 9 months, 10 months or so, I will admit if I was wrong, but I don't think Joe Milton is good enough to beat Georgia. Florida, they have either Graham Mertz, transfer from Wisconsin, or Jack Miller, an Ohio State transfer. I believe he was arrested at Ohio State, transferred to Florida, was not very good against Oregon State in the bowl game. So I think it's going to be up to those two guys. No Anthony Richardson, who is better than both of them. As ugly as it looked for him at times, against quality defenses, we know how athletic he is, but I still have question marks about him at the NFL. But no Anthony Richardson. Graham Mertz barely threw for over 2,000 yards last year, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 57% passing. Graham Mertz is not beating Georgia and Jacksonville. Not going to happen. He's not good enough. Okay, I don't mind saying it. Everyone else is thinking it. I don't mind saying it. He's not good enough, and neither is Jack Miller. All right, so Florida has a lot to do if they want to beat Georgia down in Jacksonville. I don't see it happening because they just don't have the quarterback who can do it. Kentucky has Devin Leary, was really good for NC State in 2021, threw for over 3,400 yards, 35 touchdowns in 2021. He looked solid. Massive drop-off last year. I don't know if he just got beat on the depth chart or got injured. Probably should have looked that up earlier. Someone in the comment section can tell me. But the production just wasn't there. He had to transfer. And it could have been a graduate transfer type of deal because it seems like he's been in college for a while. I thought I had the numbers here, but I don't. So I don't know if this is a grad transfer thing or if he lost a job and, wants to play one more year of college football, found an SEC place to do it. But again, he's not elite. He's not a guy who can beat Georgia, especially in Athens. So, Will Levis couldn't do it. Didn't really come close to beating Georgia, and apparently he's this top 10 quarterback, transformational guy that can, turn around an NFL program or organization, if he couldn't do it, Devin Leary is that's not the guy. He's not a guy who can lead Kentucky past Georgia. So as good as he was 2 years ago, it seems like he's getting a little worse, right? Dude's not getting any better. Fresh start at Kentucky. He might have a good year, but he's not beating Georgia in Athens. Not against this defense that I think Georgia is going to have. Auburn has Robbie Ashford. Crazy talented, really fast, really good athlete. Not the best quarterback. He's not super accurate. He's not a guy who can beat Georgia and make consistent big-time throws against a Kirby Smart defense that is going to look to eat him up. If the first option's not there, he's, going to scramble around, right? He's going to get a little shaky back there and try to use his feet. Well, Georgia can swallow you up. Now, I know he, is really fast and he can make a lot of plays with his feet, but he threw for just 1,600 yards last year, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I think he's going to be the guy for Auburn. Now, I might be wrong. I don't know who the backup is. I don't think they brought in a big-time transfer quarterback. I could be wrong there as well, but Hugh Freeze is a guy who, develops quarterbacks. That's what he does. He's always got a good guy back there who can throw the football. Didn't work out at Ole Miss. I don't think it's going to work out at Auburn, but Robbie Ashford's not a guy who can beat Georgia either. And he made a nice little play here and there against Georgia last year in Athens, but again, most of his damage was done with his feet. You're not going to run through Georgia's defense and lead your team to victory. That's not how you're going to do it. You have to make big-time throws over and over and over again. Robbie Ashford's not a guy who can do that. So that's going to be really tough. Really tough. I don't want to say impossible, but let's go ahead and say it. Impossible. Robbie Ashford's not beating Georgia. All right, let's move on. I don't want to be too mean to these guys, but again, if you're not elite, you're not beating the Dogs. You're not beating a Kirby Smart-led defense with this much talent, this much depth, and experience, coming back. Just not happening. Robbie Ashford's not a guy who can do it, in my opinion. Missouri, got Brady Cook returning. Nice little quarterback last year, average to above average on his best day. Threw for over 2,300 yards last year, 14 touchdowns. He's a guy who can also run. He rushed for 585 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. So he can make a play or two, and he almost led the Tigers to victory last year up in Middle Earth. Now, I just don't see him bringing a Missouri team down to Athens and winning. Now, he does have some weapons on the outside. Lost Dominic Lovett to Georgia. Luther Burden is still a big-time player. He's going to need a lot of help, though. He's also going to have to hold on to that job and fight off guys like Sam Horn, played at Collins Hill a couple years ago, pitches for the Missouri baseball team, and Jake Garcia, right, former 5-star from California who moved to Georgia, was at Valdosta, signed with Miami. Now he's at Missouri. I don't know. You're moving too much for me, man. You're moving too much. Very Tate Martell-ish going on, where it's just different year, different school, whether it's in high school or college. Eventually, you got to stay somewhere and you got to play. He's a Missouri, transferred there thinking he could win the job. We'll see. But right now, I think Brady Cook is going to be the starter once again. Don't think he's good enough to beat Georgia in Athens. Again, you got to be elite. Now, he's not elite, but he did almost beat Georgia last year, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But not between the hedges. That's going to be really, really tough. I don't see it happening. Ole Miss. Now, they've got a few options, right? Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State played pretty well, threw for over 2,600 yards. Didn't exactly light up the stat sheet last year, at least. But if I'm looking at the correct numbers, he didn't. But he does have big playability. He's got a really strong arm. They also have Walker Howard, former 5-star, transfer from LSU to Ole Miss, and they have Jackson Dart, who started last year. Jackson Dart is not going to be the guy, because you wouldn't have brought in 2 transfers if you thought your starting quarterback was going to be the guy next year. So Jackson Dart probably should have transferred when he saw those 2 coming in. So either way, I don't think they're elite. We haven't seen Walker Howard, so we don't know how good he is. Maybe he is really good. Spencer Sanders could be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC this year. I don't think he's bringing an Ole Miss team into Athens and winning that game, though. He's not elite. And again, if you're not one of the best quarterbacks in college football, you're not beating Georgia right now. Not last year, not this year, probably not next year or the year after that either. So Ole Miss, don't think they have the quarterback who can do it either. Georgia Tech, Haynes King, right? The guy that everyone loved at Texas A&M. Every quarterback seems like the Aggies have, I think like the media and the fans over there just jump on board, right? They absolutely love him. Next great thing. It was supposed to be Haynes King. He ended up transferring to Georgia Tech. Pretty good quarterback for Georgia Tech. They also have Zach Gibson. He played at Johns Creek in high school. played a lot last year. He's not a guy who could beat Georgia, obviously. Haynes King is not a guy who could beat Georgia either. We'll see what Connor Wegman does at A&M. He's like the new young quarterback who can move around with a big arm. I'm not into it. I don't see it. Wouldn't surprise me if he ended up transferring to it. It's just what they do at A&M. You go there, you play for a year, maybe two, and then you transfer out. But Georgia Tech, seems like they have it. They're going in the right direction. At least they're trying, but they don't have a quarterback who can beat the Dogs. So am I missing someone? Will y'all let me know? But off the bat, just looking at the schedule and who Georgia might be going against, they will not see an elite quarterback until maybe Alabama. They've got Jalen Milroe, who's not as good as Mac Jones or Bryce Young or Tua, right? I don't know if he has the arm and the accuracy to beat Georgia's defense. He can move too. He is electric, but you gotta play quarterback and you have to do it really, really well if you want to beat Georgia and put up points against them. I'm not sure if he can do it either. So they might go all year without seeing a true elite quarterback. And if they don't see that type of quarterback, I think we could see Georgia going undefeated once again. Y'all, thanks for watching this video. As always, did I get something wrong? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this video. Always appreciate it. And I will see you over on Dog Post.